will be presenting the last PhD presentation, and I'm from the Han, and also in collaboration with Radboud University. My supervisor, Stein, and in the back, the coolest people ever. And today I will be speaking about my PhD. Basically the structure is distributed into like 3-ish parts: just the problem, how we're intending to approach the problem, and an initial study and use case. So, to start with, the issue is data semantics, i.e. what does your data mean? And it concerns all kinds of mysteries of life, such as what kind of data do I have? What can I do with this data? And what exactly does column 1 mean? The thing is, when you don't exactly define what certain terms in your data mean, it can cause a bunch of confusion for the people who are using that data. For example, if you look at the comic, this guy is going to lose his star because he couldn't exactly define some terms. And people within organizations can use many terms in many different ways. And this is a really exhausted example within a research group, but the term I'm going to use is model. For example, when I think of a model, I think of a large language model. When one of my supervisors thinks of a model, he thinks of a conceptual model. And when it's my cousin, he thinks of a catwalk model. And when you work in a company which has like a specific domain and specific domain-specific terminology, it becomes way more sensitive. And this can cause a little bit of misinterpretation of data, especially when you're, for example, a new spangled employee or something. And what we need to do is make sure that the intended meaning of the data author or the data owner has been, well, can be compared properly to the person who's using the data user. So there's usually, traditionally, there's a whole spectrum of approaches that people usually use. One of them is way more structured. It's got ontologies and conceptual models and basically consultation with the domain experts about what's what. And on the other end of the spectrum, you've got, let's just plop it all into ChatGPT and see what clicks. And it makes one think that, is there a middle ground? Can we have both efficiency but also structure? Well, when there's misinterpretation, there's a bit of a semantic gap. What you intend to say may not reach the person who's using the data. And, well, in that case, much of the data value can be wasted. Its potential not realized. And how we intend to solve this, well, solve is ambitious. How we intend to approach this is with concept mining. When it comes to concept mining, I kind of broke down the definition because it was slightly vague. But, well, there's certain terms within data, and we need to analyze how these terms contribute to the data and how they shape the data. And once you can analyze them, you can, for example, create or extend the lexical asset that an organization has, and basically provide more information on these interesting concepts. There's my research question. How can a concept mining system be designed, applied, and evaluated to reconcile the meaning of the author with the perceived meaning of the reader, so that the loss of informational value is kind of minimized as much as possible? And what we seek to find out is what kind of techniques and methods we can put into this concept mining system, how well they can aid us, how we could evaluate this, and Well, whether it has real life value at all. There are some attack areas that we've already determined need attention, such as homonymous or synonymous terms within organizations, like the client example, or just multiple things being used as terms, and everyone wants to say the same thing. And how these terms could be defined or described within the data, and how we could link them together. And this is the proposed methodology based on the design sciences principles. And well, it's a bit of a rinse and repeat thing where we dive into the literature, we highlight some techniques that we think are interesting, we apply it onto certain use cases, we see what works, what doesn't, and if it doesn't, we just go back. We hit books again, we try out new things. So continuous evaluation, and I think it holds up quite well with the way that AI is accelerating and progressing. And onward to study one, which is the disambiguation of abbreviations. I do think that abbreviations are a fair example of homonymous terms being confused within organizations. And to highlight that, I will give you an example. You get a treat if you can identify all of these. But yes, and these are the full forms. So some of the things that confused me too was basically when I first saw SQL, I was like, structured query language, right? But it's a sales qualified lead. And that's how abbreviations work with an organization. You might be thinking of like one thing, and everyone else is just thinking of another full form. And to work on this, we've also are partnering up with Aliander. It's the first green partner logo. And well, they have a really wonderful, comprehensive list of abbreviations that they're using within their company. And it's basically abbreviation, full form, and an explanation. And we're trying to see that given a text, whether, well, there's a lot of angles, but one of them is an LLM able to identify the full form without human intervention. And it's a multilingual problem because documentation is in both in English, Dutch, and Frisian. So what I've done so far is basically checked whether these abbreviations are used like only company-wide, restricted to the company, or whether they use widely within the domain, or whether it's like completely domain, completely global. And to check, to do like a little experiment before I got any further, I made a test set of 15 sentences from some of their documents, and I classified them according to internal, domain specific, and global, and saw which of these held up when I just put them blindly within Copilot. And yeah, the results were quite interesting because the global examples were worked out completely fine. They could be identified most of the times. It was a bit of a hit or miss for domain-specific terms, and obviously internal terms didn't hold up quite that well. And there's another example. GPLK, I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation here, actually means within the organization gepantserde papierloodkabel. And if I just give the context, the sentence to Copilot and ask it the full form, it gives me gas, petroleum, and liquid kerosene.
At least it's some kind of cable.
Yeah, it's quite a definition, some kind of cable.
Exactly. So, well, the thing is, I had some trouble formulating the main research question for this study, but I recently met my promoter and he just suggested just do like an explorative study. You don't have to define a research question yet. So I developed some angles. There's one of these is LLM aided, which was the original one, seeing if the metadata that I've been annotating, such as the global or domain usage, or whether it's got a Wikipedia page or not, or whether it's Dutch or English, whether that aids the decision-making process of the LLM. Second, a comparison of abbreviation detecting techniques, because it can be slightly tricky when you've got these nice little characters such as hyphens. There's like an abbreviation that I found in the list, for example, which was ls, and within one of the documents they use it as ls-zider, which a normal detection mechanism couldn't find out because it's a bit of a hyphen in the middle. So that's an angle I want to explore, how well it's being detected. And the fun data management component, because the recent development is that the abbreviation list and their full forms are now being made into like a really comprehensive list at the SharePoint. And what I'd like to look into is see how these terms are being expanded, the rate at which they're being expanded, whether there's like a master list that I could make, and see how the frequency of the terms affects the meaning detection or not. And yes, after that, there's a couple of things I would like to do further, which is a couple of interviews with data managers, and how I could shape the concept mining system and how important it is in this atmosphere. So, if you have any leads, I'm looking for you. And a nice literature review to be followed by that. And that's it from me.
Thank you.